Apologies for the late start, but we got there.
It's my fault.
That was How Low Can You Go by Essendon Airport, a prolific Aussie post-punk group from 1978 to 83. And I'm joined by the original two members, David Chesworth and Robert Googe. How are you two?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hi.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You two played at Hope Street Radio on Johnson Street last Wednesday, which I went to, as you already know. But it was a very lovely night, really. I mean, the early finish was nice. Haven't had one of those for quite a while, especially with the concert night. But the music was great, the performance, and it was very tranquil and centering. Just the music, that kind of music you play, the very early minimal wave stuff. But I want to know, how'd you find that night?
Well, we found it great. It was the first time we'd played as a 5-piece with our original drummer, Paul.
Yeah.
And we're sort of finding ways to use our old material from that period. Like, most of those tunes were from 1979, really. So we're finding ways to use them and incorporate different parts and things. So yeah, we were very happy with it.
Yeah.
I think what can I say? Yeah, I mean, we enjoy playing, and so I think so for us it's just kind of an enjoyable thing to do, and we didn't have any strategies necessarily as to what we're going to play, but I suppose that one was the most playable with the group, and with the addition of Graham Lee, who's actually been with us for a long time now, on pedal steel, and Barbara coming in, who was basically the bass player during our funky period, as it were, and she's kind of really taken to it quite well. So in a way, we played and we thought, well, hopefully people will enjoy this, and they did, which, I was actually quite surprised, actually, even though, I sort of thought it would go down all right, but the reception seemed to be, really nice.
Yeah. It must feel really good, to still, even all these years later, because I know there's been sporadic touring over the years since you've, reunited, just playing with different lineups and that. It must still feel good to get that reception with this very early material that you both did.
Yeah, it's not genre based, so we're always surprised because the combo gets received well, because it's not like we're fitting into a particular genre, I think. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
It's yeah. That's the short answer.
Yeah.
I've got. What was the question?
No, just the continued people still being interested in the Essendon Airport stuff.
It surprises us.
Yeah.
And it surprises us that we can still find ways to use, the song structures that we wrote a long time ago. We are doing some new things, but in a sense everything's new because each of the gigs we've done in the last year have been with a different lineup.
We're going to be putting some more music together. There was kind of one brand new song in there, and it seemed to fit like a glove, and it's slightly different. I think when Robert and I started playing, we were influenced by we kind of what was on the radio, really. There was the sort of the punk thing happening, but there was also a very extended deep jazz sort of scene from the 70s that was kind of going on, and then the whole sort of minimal sort of music coming out of the States that I think we were quite influenced by, but also a desire we started playing stuff that that sort of worked well together, that somehow didn't really pander to those particular areas.
And a lot of it was sort of ironic in that, like, I remember, influenced by the music our parents were perhaps listening to in the car and stuff. Like, at that time there was, I know my father used to love to listen to almost music in the car, like sort of, you wouldn't call it ambient music, but it was sort of ambient in a very tasteless way. So we wanted to use like different things from popular culture and put them through the blender of sort of simple repetition sort of structures and things. Let them play
Repetition
out.
was one of the few things I could handle because I'm a bit of a remedial piano player. Like, I can hardly do it, but I kind of get there. And so stuff that's kind of repetitive and kind of stays in my finger, I make complexity out of this kind of palette of opportunities, and so I kind of try and do a lot with very little, which actually is kind of minimalism too, as well. So that's kind of nice. And so some of the sound is built out of necessity from my point of view, and then Robert sort of is quite skilled, but actually limits him. You limit yourself.
Well, I think we limit ourselves in a lot of ways. Like, now we're doing the music again, we've sort of decided, well, we just use the same instruments we were using back then. Mainly, it's mainly electric guitar, electric piano, very simple stuff. Like I use one foot pedal, which is a volume pedal, and maybe a phaser or something.
We've got those electronics that sort of sit there as well. So that's sort of which we kind of composed. And we used to play very originally with a reel-to-reel, which had the drum machine and the tape effects put in. Which we dropped the drum machine. Sorry, the reel-to-reel, but people wouldn't know what that is. It's surprising.
And the electronics at the time we did them were sort of almost old-fashioned style stuff, which was modular synthesizers and things. Whereas it was sort of hipper to be playing Arp Odyssey or something. David had access to lots of modular stuff, surge synthesizers and stuff, which we found more interesting to put in the music.
Well, I'm curious with because with the early EP, like Sonic Investigations of the World and that, into that transition into Palimpsest, like there's probably quite a bit of a gap there, but going from that sort of like drum machine, like the minimalism, to more like avant-garde, like percussion and all that, very funky in that. Like, did that kind of happen like unintentionally or by accident? Like, were you expecting to kind of like fall into change your sound in that kind of way?
I think it happened because of the type of venues we were playing. One of our original intentions was to put our music into all sorts of different spaces. Like, we played art galleries, we played pubs, we played lots of different spaces. And Palimpsest probably came from trying to play in the rock venues more, really. So incorporating drums, we did do the minimal stuff at rock venues. Like, we played with at the Crystal Ballroom with Midnight Oil and stuff, and people thought we were from like another planet.
Just for sitting down and playing, for one thing.
So
and Jimmy and the Boys, people don't remember him, but he was kind of incredibly athletic, and because I guess a lot of it was very expressive. I mean, we actually played with Boys Next Door in several spots, sometimes sharing the stage, but other times they were on different stages. But basically a lot of what was around us was very expressive, kind of people gesticulating and big climaxes and guitar kind of hero sort of stuff going on. And we sort of we're very inexpressive, non-expressive, and the music sort of untangling or tangling up was where the expression possibly lay, more than sort of, we didn't sort of do crescendos and things like that, or solos. We're sort of, not permitted. But there's one other thing that can say that made the shift happen, of course, was Paul, the drummer, ended up living in the same house as us and came back one day with a drum kit.
That he bought at the op shop.
It was op shop across the road, and it was one of these old-fashioned drums that was the bass drum was like massive thing, and and then the cymbal on a spring and a couple of other sort of things. Yeah. And he had no idea he could drum, and nor did we. And he sat down and he just started hitting every conceivable sort of pattern. And I think you instantly signed him up. As it were.
I think so. At first, he said, I'm not sure how to drum. And we said, well, watch Countdown tonight and see how they set the drums up. Oh, my gosh. So we did, but unfortunately, he interpreted it backwards, so he put everything around the wrong way. So for a while there, he was playing like I guess like a left-hander or something.
Right.
But,
wow.
But and then people even like the other day when Paul was playing with us in a more subdued way, there was a comment like people don't know if he's actually if he's like a brilliant percussionist or totally I wouldn't say rubbish, because he's not. He's fantastic, but it's hard to sort of know where he sits. But another footnote is that he also designed the cover of Palimpsest and made the cover back to front.
Oh, really?
So if you actually pull the record out, it comes out at the wrong the wrong side. So actually, there's something going on there with his right brain. With all respect,
this is some brilliance going on. Well, that's really interesting. Like that, it almost came together. Like that sounds very spontaneous, to me. Just like that, very, suddenly like choosing to like make that musical decision. Just kind of like, oh, that sounds good. Just like keep up with that. Did most of like the recording process with a lot of your music as Essendon Airport was it a spontaneous thing?
Well, David had access to Latrobe Uni's studios and was very interested in recording stuff. So I think the first Sonic Investigations was done at Latrobe Uni, but that was with a couple of other
John Campbell
people, the students who recorded it. And then by the later records, David had started recording his own stuff, and he did the Palimpsest recording.
Yeah.
Most of Palimpsest, it was all laid down pretty quickly, which is kind of, I think people are quite familiar with that again now. But there was a time, probably back then, where, you could labour for hours in studios and people were paid big budgets to kind of, make epic records. But we laid down Palimpsest probably like in one or two takes or something for each one. They were like really quick because we were so practiced up because we've been playing it around, so it's pretty much a live recording in a lot of ways. Although with
overdubs,
there was some overdubs, and the voice was done later, sort of thing.
Yeah. Because you two were very involved with the Clifton Hill Community Music Centre as well. And how did that inform, like sort of the inception of Essendon Airport, but also like musical journey as well? Because there would have been a lot of like similar artists, and local bands at that time, involved in that sort of like pocket of music in Melbourne.
Well, there weren't so many. Just to say, it was only a handful.
Only a handful.
Yeah.
And our first gig was for the Sonic Investigation material. We wrote that for a performance at Clifton Hill, and I think we were called Blue Green or something.
Oh, right.
At
So I
first.
saw that on the poster. Yeah, we
Oh.
was right. We didn't have a title.
Like blue-green algae or something.
And there was a colour on the poster, like a smudge of blue and a smudge of grey.
Oh.
And then later on, we thought, yeah, we don't know about that name. And Philip Brophy from the group, Tisk, said, sort of cynically, why don't you call yourself Essendon Airport? And we thought, that's the worst name we've ever heard. Okay, we'll do it.
We come from Essendon. We both live right next to Essendon Airport.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I think
yeah.
Philip sort of picked up on that. But
Yeah.
I think Clifton Hill gave us, it was great because it gave us, Clifton Hill was an experimental music venue where there weren't any of these sorts of spaces and people didn't pay to go there, so there wasn't an expectation they get value. But the thing is, we could literally try. This was literally an experiment, I think, just to see if people would like enjoy or get something out of it. And we got the thumbs up from the small audience there, and it gave us confidence, I suppose, to keep going. And we did a lot. We did the 4-piece performed there, and we did a few other stuff which never got recorded in the same way. I suppose we did a guitar duet there, which is recorded. It's on the Clifton Hill website.
Yeah.
And then, I think Philip's the group that he was involved with, Tisk, were very supportive in that we lent each other equipment, and there was a kind of a mutual enthusiasm.
And they were a big influence on us as well, I'd say, just to do something, seeing other people do things, you thought, hey, we could do that too.
Yeah.
There was a sort of a just do it attitude, which was a bit of a punk attitude, I know. But the thing is, it sort of was very valuable because you have to, back then the music scene was very commercial. And and if it wasn't, then it was doing jazz or classical. There wasn't, all these little subsets that there are now with their sort of following. It was very much mainstream.
Yeah.
There were like some spaces that there'd be freaky things happening.
Yeah.
I can think of there was a place called the Commune in Fitzroy where they'd have like free jazz or prog, really weird prog rock sort of bands and things. Yeah. And they were all places that we'd been attending as, a part of the audience and stuff. So all that sort of thing interested us.
But Clifton Hill was a community music centre. Was this, you got feedback and you got comments from people who, even people like Warren Burt and Ron Nagorka, who are like generation older and probably not known to many people, but they were very influential in bringing experimental music to Melbourne. And it's just their comments and observations. We might not agree with them necessarily, and they might, they were also, there was a sort of a kind of acknowledgement that we were, cause when we started playing the ballroom and places like that, that we were, we're hitting the big time. We got tickets on ourselves. It was like because some people just thought that was beyond the pale to sort of desert your kind of coterie of people who are kind of respectfully enjoying your music. Yeah. But it was very I think we followed Philip's Tisk out into playing those venues and being a bit sort of quietly aggravating our audiences.
Yeah. and those places were always looking for really cheap sort of support bands. So there was just so many gigs for us.
That's right. There used to be like, actually the payment was better then than now, you have to say, in a lot of ways. But it might be $50 or $500, but you'd have to, there was always the and lug the PA part of it. So it's like always... that's $300 and lug the PA was always in the contract, and so you had to wait around to the end of the night. And back then you didn't have these clever speakers. You had these what were called J-bins and things that were these massive black structures either side of the stage, and you had to help these roadies. It was because the roadies ruled everything, and you had to kind of stick around and look before you went into the back CD office to try and get some actual ready cash at the end of the night. Yes.
Far out.
Yeah,
far
that's
out.
that
Yeah.
was, I guess, fun.
Yeah, but but I'm curious about, like, you even made a similar comment too, like on the Hope Street night, like that sort of, like, I don't know, teasing the audience sort of thing. Like, is it because of like like because of how different you guys were with the sort of like material? Like, was it, I don't know, challenging to other audiences, or like?
Well,
Oh,
there was. I don't know. Sorry if that came over. We were playing. We were
No,
being
no.
cynical to
Oh no, no.
preference audience.
You're fine. No.
There was a heckler, of course.
I
Did you
was
hear the
actually going to
heckler?
say that. Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up.
And you
I think
found
that's-
out who that was too,
Oh,
but
really?
who remain nameless.
Yeah.
But he goes back to a time he would have been a typical audience member back in the 80s, who kind of like it did this. He was not necessarily totally familiar with our music.
Yeah.
And he kind of thought, this isn't delivering me what I expect to find in the venue.
Right. Yeah.
And he was very intoxicated, and he called something out, but it was. I said, yeah, that takes me right back.
yeah. No, yeah. No, I get you. I see. Yeah.
But was that your question, or did you?
No,
have
no,
something-
yeah.
something-
no, it was. Yeah.
But
Oh.
I think to activate an audience is kind of really interesting, even if it's you said you
Yeah.
felt centered. Well, I mean that's very interesting. Before we went on air, I think you just said it was centering,
Yeah.
and I won't. For me, I can unpack that, but we won't
Yeah.
perhaps now. But I mean, but for people to sort of think about where the music's, just have a response.
I'd say we're always thinking about the music more than the audience too. Like we just think, no, we're putting this process in train. It's going to play out. If you like it, that's great. If you don't, we don't care.
Yeah.
but
We'd like them to like it,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they are experiments. They're when the new song is still putting it together and seeing, working it to a point where, and it sort of seems to work for us. It sort of ticks our boxes. It's like, oh, I wonder if that translates to audiences getting it, and that one went down quite well actually.
Yeah, and our music has aspects of ambient music, although it's probably like a little bit more active than that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we don't expect people sort of jumping around.
No. Yeah.
Although there's tapes of us surfacing of us playing at a party, and we
really?
were the dance band of the 1983 and probably 82, where people used to go crazy, and so we it's a far cry from what we played at Hope Street.
And there's quite a few people who like us to do that side of our stuff again, which we're probably finding. I don't know whether we can.
Our ears are wrecked.
Yeah. Oh,
It'd be nice to. I mean, we haven't mentioned Paul, Ian Cox.
Yeah, I was gonna say because you mentioned did he hung up his saxophone? Just all.
Yeah, he
sort
just gracefully sort of stepped away.
It's fair enough, yeah.
Just decided that's it. I've had it.
Yeah.
But he was amazing because he had beautiful sort of melodic sort of sensibility, but then he'd have this sort of Ornette Coleman, absolute sort of incredible improvisatory sort of style, and I guess it was stuff would he would come in with this sort of eruption of sound over this kind of thing that we'd built up. So it's interesting.
We met him at 3CR. I think you were doing you were the guest host of one of the 3CR new music shows or something, and Ian came in with Chris Wyatt and a bunch of Ornette Coleman records or something.
Oh, okay.
And we thought, hey, we need a saxophone player, perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps you'd like to join.
The other thing that I guess, just to mention Palimpsest again and Ian, because it comes to mind. A lot of the titles were actually taken from a not a cheat sheet book, but it's a similar kind of thing. They're all titles of like 50s and 60s songs, like Begin the Begin and I Feel a Song Coming On, you know.
So, yes, well, some of them were based, like some of the ones with words, we took the older words from some of these songs and just totally like invented them as a song.
Yeah.
Completely changed
And part of it was, you know, to breach copyright. Like we wanted to...
We wanted to breach copyright.
That was part of... Because we figured we were doing that with lots of the structures of the music anyway. Like How Low Can You Go's part of it's based on a TV show, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. The theme song in that. That's the gag, because it's about, you know, a TV show about a submarine. But so some of that stuff on Palimpsest, mainly the stuff with lyrics.
All the lyrics are not are lyrics from the 40s, 50s, and 60s cheat sheet book.
Wow.
And like Happy Ending, I feel a happy ending. That is, I Feel a Song Coming On, Begin to Begin, Like Young, sort of beatnik sort of song.
Yeah.
I don't think Begin isn't. It's just named after an old-fashioned...
Oh, that's sorry. Well, it hasn't got a lyrics, that one, has it?
No,
that one's an instrumental.
But it's called Begin the Begin is the song, title.
Wow.
Begin, you know, Begin to Begin, the song.
Begin. It's got a begin. The guitar parts of begin.
You probably named it.
Yeah, it's got a begin.
Okay.
Rhythm pattern to the guitar.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Right, I'm finding things out.
We're all learning today. No, it's really interesting. No, that's... Yeah, I mean, I would have never, you know, like, made that connection, but it's really interesting to see that they just, like, there's a place where they all came from in that. You know.
Well, there's this sort of layering up. I mean, for those who know the term palimpsest, it's like this kind of layering of texts that have been overwritten on top of, like, one text erased, another one written on top, and another, but they all sort of come through. And that was your title, I think. It was good. It sort of explained a little bit about the music, you know, because our music is, you know, it might sound original, but probably very little of it is original. It's all like gleaned from all the listening into pop and experimental.
Yeah.
And like where the originality comes from is like putting all these little phrases and things through the grinder of like repetition techniques and things.
Yeah, sort of. So all of a sudden something that was a throwaway phrase becomes repeated, and I mean this is the bread and butter of most contemporary music making now through sampling. And anyway, so, but of course this was pre-sampling all this stuff. So you know.
It's a very organic process, just like sticking to that. You know, it's like mantras almost. You know, like those little bits. You know, just like, you know, they stick with you. You know, and you got to do something with it. You know, you give them meaning, like when you make something from it, you know. On that, like, layering too, I mean, like, the cover art as well, like, it was silk screened, I read somewhere. Like, what was the process of making that? Because it's very, like, you know, like the music itself, it's very, like, alluring, captivating, you know, like, interesting.
It's also a palimpsest as well, so it's the...
the layering too,
We all discussed what we wanted the cover to be, and we thought, you know, it would be great if it could be a palimpsest in some ways. And Paul, who was doing a degree at
PIT, it was called
PIT.
Preston Institute of Technology.
Yeah, he was doing lots of screen printing out there, and he said, I've got this process where I can do screen printing on plastic as well. So I think he probably suggested he could do the cover in 2 pieces. Yeah. And we were his assistants for the day. And
I think we were in Philip and Maria Kozik's, Philip Rofian Kozik's studio.
I don't know.
Dying of fumes.
Oh, it's terrible.
Oh, no.
But we used to do all our covers. You know, even Sonic Investigations of the Trivial is a screen print job as
Yeah.
well.
Oh.
So they all
Yeah.
the Innocent records on the Innocent label were screen printed by us, designed by Philip Maria and
Yeah.
Paul Fletcher. And
Yeah, the first one was Philip Brophy and Maria Kozik's work.
Yeah.
But Palimpsest, we actually got
that's
our
pretty much
hands-
us, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
mm.
And has like Paul has a great sort of visual style, which is this sort of matches his drumming really. It's kind of, you can make out a form, but it's a bit wobbly. And
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's kind of become our signature sort of, I guess, sort of imagery really by default.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
yeah.
Another thing I'm curious about is, like reuniting in the first place. You know, after like disband, you know, the initial disbandment, and like sporadically like coming back, and even with the new Ancesna collaboration a couple of years back. Agua por favor. You know, what what compelled you to like, you know, sort of bring it back? Like, you know, did you feel as if the story was incomplete and more to tell, or?
I think chapter music played a really big part in that
Mm.
by re-releasing our early stuff, and we've had
Yeah.
a few different reunions over the time, but
Yeah, well, when that was released, that was about 2004, and I had to completely relearn all that material, so it hadn't been touched for a long time.
Yeah.
So the compelling, I suppose, is it's just fun to play. It's just nice to be doing things.
and it's nice to reconnect with people you've done creative stuff in the past with,
Yeah.
and see what you can do now. It's sort of really good, really, you know,
I guess
pleasurable.
there are those combinations, you know, like bands often form like in high school, and
Yeah.
we didn't. Robert and I didn't go to the same school, but we were sort of in the same sort of young scene in Essendon. And there's that tendency to, you know, there seems to a lot of bands, you know, you stick with that because you get used to that other input and being
Yeah.
able to work with it.
Yeah.
Not to say that others aren't interesting, and we went quite divergent ways. I mean, Robert formed I'm Talking and all
Yeah.
that sort of business, and I did my sort of business, which was, you know, in a like different area.
Yeah.
So it's just it's nice just to come back. I think it's a bit of a cliche, really.
I think for me, I'd say the pandemic too made me more nostalgic for
Yeah, right.
reconnecting with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new single got put together
Yeah,
over the pandemic. We were just sending each other, Robert and I, files.
Yeah.
And it was just with a view to trying to make a, what was it?
yeah, and
a stonking,
Ancestor.
anky, funky
we were
bit
having,
with Anne, yeah.
and I guess part of that was like there's been all these reissues of the Ancestor song too. So
Yeah.
we sort of
Yeah.
thought, well, let's wonder what we do together now, like the three of us.
Yeah, so we got, and Anne was, we hadn't seen Anne for a long, long time, but that was great, and she came and wrote her bit as she did the first time,
Yeah.
and so that was really nice doing that.
And I think our music generally is like a collaborative nature too.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like we'd worked with those people and we knew that they had a great input into the thing. So yeah, it's reconnecting with people and just seeing what comes of it.
Yeah. Was it difficult to like tap back into, so all these years later, like try to tap back into the aesthetics of this sort of sound, or not at all?
Well, from my point of view, it's dead easy.
Yeah, same here.
It's sort of like, so that particular style is the only style that I really know. So it's kind of what I do, and Essendon Airport lets me get away with it, basically. So
And yeah, it's just, well, we remember how we what was important to us at the time, and it had a really defined way of writing stuff that was really easy to reconnect with again.
It's sort of like, I guess, it's writing like a jigsaw puzzle, and so we slot these pieces in. I mean, I think a lot of music's made that way as well. But
Yeah.
of course, our stuff doesn't have sort of, it has A sections and B sections stuff, but it doesn't have chord progressions in the sort of sense that, and key changes in the sense that, like popular music does. It has them, but they're more like different slabs that we go to rather than, you know, traditional. Very few chords. I shouldn't say that because all we play is chords, but they're more like pointillistic, aren't they? And they ambiguous.
Yeah, there's not like a chord progression in things.
Yeah.
We're doing lots of arpeggiation of like maybe one or two chords over and over and over.
Yeah, it's almost like the, you know, with the repetition, you know, it's like almost like unfolding. You know, it's like it's entrancing, almost. That's when I listen to it. That's like kind of what you know, you kind of get lost in those rhythms. You know, sort of dancing around it. You know, and you kind of just like get absorbed in that repetition.
Well, that's the same for us. Yeah, that's what we enjoy, I think.
Yeah.
Discovering. So we discover when we go, oh, listen to what this is doing, rather than going, let's do this. It's sort of like, you know, we find something is actually working when we listen to it. You know, sort of like facets of a diamond or something.
Yeah.
If I select a diamond there, diamond in the rough.
Sure. But like exploring that sort of like, is that like one of the big goals you have with Essendon Airport? Like just that sort of, you know, hypnotic, entrancing like melodies, all that kind of thing. Like is that a main intention you have with this sort of music?
I don't think it was when we originally did it, but when we've come back to it, I know from my part, like I sort of am rediscovering, you know, like I think I can be like a little bit more expressive here, or you know, it's become a little bit more towards that hypnotic end of music, and it's sort of, I think it's improved from that. We're sort of a bit more cut and dried, the early recordings and things.
Yeah.
Well, Ian was a stickler, as we all were, for, you know, I'll play this melody so many times, it'll do this, and then he'll go crazy or something, and then come back, and it was great. And Graham it's quite different with the pedal steel, because that sort of sits over, and it kind of has this looser sort of feel, and so we have our stuff churning away quite rigidly. And then Graham, he has some set things that he does, but often it can vary, and that's brought in.
And that sort of instrument adds a sort of musical glue to all the parts too. I don't know, but it brings out certain things that are different.
Someone at Hope Street said, "Oh yeah, maybe I don't know if was it you?
I don't know. It could be. I don't know."
Someone said it reminded them of the Chill Out album. KLF, and well, Graham Lee is the pedal steel on the Chill Out album.
Really?
Yeah. He is the KLF pedal steel guy.
That's crazy.
He was playing in the Triffids, recording in England, and KLF were in the adjacent studio. So Bill Drummond got him across, and they basically made the Chill Out record on the fly by just feeding in these CDs and records, and having Graham just nodding to Graham when to play, and he just improvised, and that was it. That was the album, and so that's why it sounds like the Chill Out album.
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe I didn't. I'm thinking back now, just like, now I'm putting it together. Like, that's crazy. Wow. Yeah. I mean, with like, you know, because I think a big thing with the Hope Street gig was saying like, you know, this is a new lineup you've never played with before, and that, you know, like, and all the, I mean, you know, of course you've known everyone for a long time.
A new combo.
Yeah. Is it always like? I'm trying to think where I was. well, like all like the different lineups and that, has that always been like something you've done with like this project and like everything? Does it keep you like
Not
still engaged or like?
No, not really. I mean, that's just something that's evolved a bit as we've gone along.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ancestral one came about because that was a studio record.
Right.
So we got in the studio, and
Yeah.
then it was just me and Robert, and then we got Anne in. So
Yeah.
that evolved that way.
Yeah.
And then we were offered a gig at Chapter's 30th or...
Yeah.
and I think they wanted us to do the minimal stuff, but then we thought, how do we incorporate? But they also wanted Anne as well, so then we had to figure out how we'd incorporate Anne. So that was part of that was how that lineup evolved, and for other gigs around that time.
We are re-releasing Palimpsest. Chapter Music are re-releasing it
As
next
vinyl.
year on vinyl. Is what I'm trying to say. And so we actually might pull together the more robust version of Essendon Airport for a big special concert for that.
Wow! That's huge news. I was about to
Oops.
ask. You heard it hit live premiere. World premiere.
This is the theory, anyway. It's a long way to go yet, so it'll be a year away probably. But
with
'Cause
vinyl.
we're at the stage where is how we can present the album cover, because it's it's going to be slightly different because
because these days it's hard to do a homemade product without paying thousands of
copious
dollars.
amounts
So we have another solution to that.
Yeah. That's exciting. That is exciting. That's very exciting.
Oh,
I was gonna ask.
I'm pleased you're excited.
I was going to ask about that.
I know. I thought you might. I thought I'd jumped the gun
Might as
there.
well.
but-
Yeah.
No, well, it is happening. Because the thing is, we've got to figure out: can we play with Paul playing loud drums? Can we withstand it? And can we still play the songs?
I'm sure they'll. There's definitely the interest is there. Clearly, like.
yes, and do we have a saxophone player?
Yeah,
player in the mix?
I was kind of miss Ian. A bit
Yeah,
from that.
I was gonna say because because Ian stopped, you'd probably have to get someone else maybe, or I don't know, like how. what do you
We
reckon,
we did have Phil Bywater play with us
He was
in
great.
pretty much. We did the Palimpsest sort of set, really, didn't we?
Oh, we did at the old Melbourne Jail.
Yeah, that was for Chapter's 20th.
So that was just 10 years ago.
This is
That's probably the last little bout of playing we did, and that was like one gig.
And Phil was great.
Yeah, he was a good player. So with that, I think you'd have to get a sax player back because it's sort of integral to that.
And you have to choose a sax player who's in that same sort of bag that Ian was in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, on future plans too, like new material as well, because there were a couple new ones you played. I think you said a couple song titles. Concord, I think.
Concord,
Malibu is Concord. It's a tribute to George Benson's label, isn't it? Maybe is it?
Is that what it is?
I think
It's a bit.
maybe.
It's
It's a tongue in. Is it
it's a
inside?
tongue-in-cheek
Yeah.
thing because the first part sounds a bit like George Benson.
Yeah.
And just it's a nice tie-up because of Concords are playing, and our music's very, it's
Concord.
not a
It's
discord.
a Concord.
It's a Concord.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we're going to be doing some other things. I think we're a little bit excited to try some new things.
we did record the 4-piece version of a lot of this stuff with Barbara and Graham, and that's possibly coming out digitally on Chapter sometime.
Could be, but we're preempting all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
We
So,
can,
it's in
we
the
can
can.
say one thing for sure, sort of certain, since I'll get it in. We are playing a gig in August, so I think we're part of this cease and desist performance event. I think it's a 2-day event. I tried to get some info on this before I came, and anyway, it's happening on the 10th and 11th of August at the at Russia House, and I think there'll be some. I don't think we've been announced yet, so
No.
oops. No, I think it's totally fine. It's
No,
good.
yeah, no, amazing. Well, listeners and community will definitely hear about it.
Yeah.
I'll drag my mates down again.
So it'd be nice
Yeah.
to do, to add
Yeah.
to our material for that. And I
Yeah.
think I'm just interested in. I'm very interested in what people think about it. Actually, I'm sort of because it's a very much a younger audience, of course.
Yeah. Because I wanted to because I've been to some concerts and gigs, with definitely older bands and that, but I even noticed at the Hope Street night, there were quite younger audience too, in some pockets here and there. I'm just curious as to how you two feel about your music still having that reach with such an audience.
Well, it's amazing because I mean, the fact that we're in talking to you is pretty nice. It's true. It's so it's pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not a great nostalgia aspect to what we're doing because
Yeah, it never really arrived in its moment because it was always alternative and never really embraced
so we
in a
don't
big way.
Yeah.
we don't have all these old fans who are desperate to hear one particular thing. There are people from Clifton Hill who are at that gig and stuff, but we're
Well, our audience probably doesn't. A lot of them don't go out anymore. They sort of but there are some absolute troopers. Kim Beisel and various others, just to say, who come out and fantastic. So if we're to play, we do need to have. It's only because people want to hear us, and so it's really nice.
And I guess that gives us the freedom to mess around with the music a bit more too, because we just think we don't have to do a particular version of something. We're just sort of pleasing ourselves.
Yeah.
We're trying to make something.
Yeah,
that
it's all
sounds
just
good.
pleasing us, hopefully pleasing an audience, or interesting an audience, perhaps if it's not pleasure. Because boredom, boredom used to be quite a respected emotion when we were playing in the 70s. It was because through boredom you actually make huge discoveries because you're kind of going, when is this song going to end or whatever, and then there can be a revelation. You see, but this is not really. It's a lost art of using boredom as a positive force.
Yeah. But I like the coming back to just even playing all this old material again, and or just looking back on it. Do you wish maybe you recorded some stuff differently or made more, or is just the work just stands on its own as it is? You wouldn't touch it or whatever. Because I know on the chapter music reissue when Palimpsest came out, there's a whole other disc of live recordings that have completely different, sort of in the same vein, but you can see there's a definite branch out to different types of music going on. Do you feel you wish you could have recorded some of that, or?
Yeah, most of those weren't recorded. There's a couple of bad studio recordings in that that we included. But that's the live ballroom stuff. But it was very quick period. From our first record came out in 79 to we were done and dusted by 83. So it was, and so the last bit of material, which was with Barbara Hogarth, who's playing with us now, it was that was 18 months. Or, it wasn't a lot, and then it was kind of.
And it wasn't easy. Wasn't easy to record back then.
No, that's the thing. You couldn't just put a laptop and get a whole bunch of inputs in. You had to book a studio.
You had to wait for them to invent the laptop.
That's right. there was the studios were really expensive, or you had
Yeah.
someone with a key to a studio, but they could often be incredibly irritating people who would then spend 3 hours getting a kick drum sound,
Oh my god.
whilst you kind of lost your moment for your 4-minute song. So it was very frustrating, and it was very, like as Robert said, it's very. That's why people were still getting, $200,000 kind of recording budgets to pay all that to South Melbourne studios to go in and use their, incredible spaces.
Yeah.
So I think we were hamstrung by not having the access to recording studios. Yeah.
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 But the last recording on that bonus disc, which is still going to be available electronically on the re-release.
Yeah.
It was taken from the majority of it from the Crystal Ballroom, our last ever gig.
Yeah.
It was a live to air recorded on Triple R, and it was done live on Triple R.
Yeah.
And they made a recording of it, and but the recording was subsequently lost because who archives, but our friend Philip Jackson, musician Philip Jackson, recorded it on cassette.
Oh wow!
And that is the recording that we used because it was actually really not a bad live recording. And cassettes now is seen as incredible recording. The quality of them's not bad at all.
Yeah.
So that's a cassette recording.
Lucky, yeah. Well, because I can imagine a lot of stuff, getting lost. Especially with how are just quick and transient. I mean, you look at the period when you were initially active as Essendon Airport. It was really, really quick. Is there more stuff in the archive at all, if anything, or?
No, it's all.
No,
it's all out.
I can't believe it only exists because David has archived it all and has looked after it all. If it was left to me, I would have just chucked it all out.
And it was only archived because I remember we had it in a real recording studio. I think I was anyway with the VCA, Victorian College of the Arts, had a studio. Maybe they still do. And Mickey Letho was there and others. Anyway, he had a very early analog to digital converter there, and so I took these cassettes and tapes in and converted them to digital at that time. And a lot of those tapes were a lot of them, I don't know if you know, but there's a whole tape issue of for 20 years where tapes turn to this jam and glue.
Yeah.
And some of them you can't fix and some you can. So anyway, we got away with it by dubbing those over at that particular time, thinking
lucky.
Yeah. But I mean, it's actually people don't hanging onto archives. The fact that the Clifton Hill Community Music Centre, there's a website called Listening to the Archives.
Yes. Yeah.
And on that, there's 40 recordings, including Essendon Airport and Tisk Tisk Tisk, of stuff done that's kind of only available there, and that was recorded on cassette and only just transferred.
Ernie Altoff, someone he recorded most of that, just nearly every performance, really, didn't he?
Well, I thought of every performance, but there are 40, maybe 50 recordings, which is a lot, but there was quite a few that he didn't record. But they were his choices. But now it's become it's incredible documents, and he recorded it on a binaural headset. So this is where the microphones are in these ears, in the ears of a pretend head. And you can see it in some shots, the binaural there, sitting there, and they're incredibly beautiful recordings. And so I've just put together this website, and a lot of all the recordings that he did are up there, and it's a great resource for the 2 or 3 people who had driven to find out what it sounded like. Well, there you go. 4 people is good.
It's better than
because you have to spend time listening to sound archives as opposed to visual archives. You can flick through on Instagram, whatever. But sound archives, you have to spend the time. And a lot of the pieces used to be long. We used to do long pieces.
But
an hour.
Yeah, it's still amazing that. Well, that archive exists at all. I mean, archiving that sort of thing, it's very important. I think it's a very important thing, and just to have that document now, like years down the line, just it's, maybe at the time you wouldn't think much of it, but like, retrospectively it becomes like this very valuable resource, like you said too.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought, the fact that Ernie recorded it, Ernie Althoff, was, good on him, because we didn't go about doing it, and there was less of a interested, like there's very few photographs of us as the duo. There's like two photographs. We didn't go around documenting things. It was almost seen as like, not the done thing to think that you have to be documented, as though people in the future might be interested. It was very much being in the moment, I think. A lot of the music making was for there and then, and for the audience consumption. It's spun around a bit to that, now, which just to say, Hope Street and various other, the live transaction is fantastic, because people can't fast forward on, and they can't flick. And it's people get so much out of listening to live performance.
Yeah, I think. It's like just you have to like really be involved and like, just take it in. You
have to commit.
In the moment. You have to commit to it. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, shit, what is this doing? Oh, look, okay, I can't really move.
Yeah. Well, let's see what else I've got. Yeah. Well, I really want to. I mean, really, what initially set me off, like, to, going down the rabbit hole and everything, and of what there is, there's an Instagram account called Beautiful Noise Melbourne, and they show like tour posters, like local gigs and that. And then yours popped up for the Hope Street Radio gig. That's just how I found it. And I was hearing, the song was "I Feel a Song Coming On." That's what I played, and I was just like, "Oh, this is fantastic," But I was, like astonished to find out it came out, late 70s, early 80s. Just like, no way, like it was just not saying it just to be nice or anything, but genuinely, like, a lot of it does sound very forward thinking, very ahead of its time, especially a song like that. Like, I really did think it was contemporary, like came out today, even though it has like maybe a tad bit of a retro sound, probably the recording of it, but just like, I just want to know, like, if there's anything you could comment about that particular song, because that's got most streaming numbers and everything. That might be the one that most people know. But
well, that is one. All the lyrics for that are taken from 1001 Pop Hits.
It's Judy Garland's song.
Thing, yeah.
Judy Garland.
The original.
I feel a song coming on.
Oh,
it's a wonderful feeling. A happy.
Yeah. So that's where we got the lyrics. I mean, that group of songs. We did a concert at Clifton Hill where we did only songs that we used the words and regenerated them.
Yeah.
And probably that's a bit of a strange one for us, because Paul plays the clarinet in that with Ian on saxophone, and I play the drums, and David plays a plug-in chord organ, like with a little motor, like a sort of vacuum cleaner type motor.
And the song, the lyrics were added later, or the words.
Yeah.
It was like an addition, just,
Was it always like that? Just like the old music first and then lay down the line lyrics? Or?
Well, in that instance, in the palimpsest stuff, it was only like 3 sections of those lyrics. But but not with the later stuff, because there's lyrics in the songs in the 5-piece.
But it was written all, you might have recorded the vocals later when you're recording, but the actual writing of it was done, all together. We sort of picked out the songs. We picked out songs that we thought the lyrics had some sort of, I don't know, ironic appeal to us, So the thought of "I Feel a Song Coming On"
Yeah, those Tim Panelli songs, there's just so much enthusiasm and hope.
Yeah.
And, it was stuff that people consumed in the popular, and
Yeah.
songs were always, they make you buoyant and all that.
Yeah.
But you change the quality of the
Yeah.
delivery and they say other things perhaps.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. The other aspect of perhaps them sounding fresh today is I think a lot of our playing was, except Robert accepted and Ian, but, some of us were not. There's a looseness and a kind of and a crudity to some of the recording because I just figured it out. But that became an aesthetic a bit later, like after we'd finished. This sort of like trying your best, but imperfectness is kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And we were pretty imperfect, so I think stuff that was done in $200,000 sort of studio settings tended to be much more slick and perfect, and so we were never slick.
And it doesn't sound like stuff from that period because at that period we didn't sound like anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. We were just trying to find another way not to sound like. I don't know. I remember we tuning into it was like Radio Birdman in one sense, and then there was like Philip Glass, and then there was some sort of Chick Corea. There was then there was Edgar Furrows, and it was like we don't want to say these things. We're just saturated with this stuff, and we just had to find a little spot that would work for us.
Yeah,
I think that's how we did it.
No, amazing. No. Well, I won't leave you two here much longer. No, thank you so much for wanting to have a chat, and being willing to, just discuss all this, like early material. I just think it's just, I personally listen to a lot of, like new wave and 70s, 80s alternative rock, that sort of era. But it really just like my ears like lit up when I found out that in Melbourne, like this was quite a thing that was happening. Like even if it was quite small, it was still a thing that happened. There's a whole like all the documentation about it, all the archiving of that. To be able to talk to you two about it, it really is an honor. Very happy. Very happy about it.
Happy to be asked.
Yeah,
Rick,
it's a pleasure. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah.
Do you two have anything else you want to add before we finish up, or
I don't know.
upcoming gigs?
There's probably stuff, but I can't really think. I think we've covered a fair amount of it, really. Yeah, I don't know. So thanks.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you so much for joining me. I will finish up with playing I Feel a Song Coming On, the one that switched me on, hopefully switches on other people too, Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
I feel a song coming on, and I'm warning ya, it's victorious, happy and glorious new strain. I feel a song coming on, and it's a melody full of laughter, of children after the rain. Story ringing through ya, love and glory, hallelujah. Cause I feel a song coming on, and I'm warning ya, it's a victorious, happy and glorious new strain. I feel a song coming on, and it's a melody full of laughter, of children after the rain. story ringing through ya. Love and glory, hallelujah. And now me troubles are gone. Let those heavenly drums go on drumming, 'cause I feel a song coming on. And now me troubles are gone. Let those heavenly drums go on drumming, 'cause I feel a song coming on.